Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. Napoli Union Berlin. It was a game that Napoli should have really won against a weaker opposition, an opposition that had not tasted a win or even a draw in 12 games, hadn't scored for 32 days, and yet they come to the Stadio Diego Armando Maradona. They get a point, they get a goal, and Napoli's left wondering, where did it all go wrong? We'll talk more about this game, and I want to introduce a special guest, John. Welcome onto the show. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Dom. Thanks for having me. And I'm the winner of the October prediction poll that Dom runs. Fortunate enough to win it, and here I am with Dom. So again, thanks for having me, and good job running that poll. It's a lot of fun. Keeps me engaged in the games.
John, what was your strategy with those predictions? Did you go with lots of goals in October, or were you, I don't know, counting on a specific player to give you some goals and assists, or what was the strategy?
Just gut instincts. That's all it was. Just thinking of the game, who they're playing. What am I feeling? Who's going to score? How many are we going to concede? And that was it. Just pure luck, to be honest.
No, but you did well. I was looking at some of your answers, and you had Politano come up a few times, and he's been having a good season so far. So why don't we start with the positives? Politano, did you expect this kind of season from him after what we've seen in the past few years?
No, it's definitely been a surprise, but I'll take it. I'm not going to complain. I didn't expect it, but he's been on fire as of late, and it's fantastic. I actually hope it translates to the international team. Hopefully, we can do the same there because we need a couple wins as well. Same with Raspadori. I'm a big fan of him, so I'm hoping that he gets to start on the national team. So I think, I'm really impressed with Politano. I laying up that net, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring up Raspadori as well, because these are two players that have, unlike maybe some of their teammates, these are two players that have elevated their game this season compared to last season. Like there's no one that's been consistent for these whole 2 years. Either you were good last season or you're good this season, or vice versa, which kind of tells us a lot about how different Garcia is compared to Spalletti. As we said, the positive is that we have Raspadori, we have Politano playing well. And there's a lot of people asking, for example, why does Lindstrom not play? But John, I mean, if you're Garcia, are you going to really play Lindstrom if you've got Politano on fire like this at the moment? I feel like this is the one thing that he's doing well, which is insisting on Politano.
I agree. But, on the flip side, against Salernitana, I wish he would have rested him a bit and played Lindstrom a little bit. Played Simeone. I think you need to get these guys a little more engaged in the game, get them on the field, get them in shape, because when you need them, you want to be game ready. So I think they're sitting too much, especially against a team like Salernitana, bottom of the table. Like, come on, give some other guys an opportunity. Rest Politano. And then if you rest, I feel like you have a little more fire inside to the next game, right? I only played 20 minutes. You build up that fire, and you want to get out there in the next game and go at it. I mean, not that Politano needs it; he's been doing great, but if we rotate around to other players, I think that would be beneficial. That's one thing that I would do if I was Rudy Garcia, but clearly I'm not.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it makes sense in terms of preventing injuries. You don't want, because of how good Politano's been, you don't want to run the risk of injuries, not against a team like Salernitana. And also, in case they do pick up something, a little knock here and there, you want the guy who's coming in to be, fully integrated into the team, knows what he's doing, knows his teammates, is on form. And I think that's the most disappointing thing, actually, is that we've not been able to get any of our substitutes in the right kind of form. Like I look at the bench, and there's nobody right now that I think, oh, he's going to come on and I'm sure he's going to make a positive impact, just because no one's built up that kind of thing. For example, Elmas, he scored against Salernitana, which is great. But then Garcia doesn't even put him into the field yesterday against Union Berlin. It's like, are you actively trying not to build some kind of form here? Because you'd think that the one guy who came on, made a difference, would get a chance to do that as well yesterday. So I don't understand his substitutions. Like, I don't know if you had the same sort of feeling as well.
I do. Yeah. They're pretty frustrating, his substitutions. I don't know what his rationale is or what he's thinking. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Dom. His substitutions haven't been the best. That's definitely a weak side of him for sure.
Do you think his job is again on the line after failing to win against Union?
You know what? I think we're stuck with him for the rest of this year. I don't think a change mid-season is going to benefit the team. You're going to bring in a different manager, different tactics. I think, in my opinion, having somebody from the start in training, showing them the method, how you want them to play, would be more beneficial. I don't think he's gone. I think we're stuck with him.
At least until Christmas, right?
For sure. Yeah, that's
at
for
least
sure.
Because we've done it once with Ancelotti, but even then, when Gattuso came, it wasn't. First off, it wasn't the best option out there because it's, as you said, there's nothing really out there right now. And even then, Gattuso took like a month to really get into the rhythm. So it's not like changing a coach right now is going to instantly guarantee any kind of success.
Exactly. I don't think we can afford that right now, right? Just a whole new system and a whole new manager. We've got, after the international break, look who we're playing: Atalanta, Real Madrid, Juventus, Inter. Those are huge games. So we better be at the top of our game for those, because that's going to really, in my opinion, kind of make or break the season, right? And if we lose all those, we're going down in the table. So those are huge games.
I love that you bring this up also because it leads me to this other thing that I was thinking about, which is everybody just assumes that we're going to get out of the Champions League group because, okay, Real Madrid's qualified. We have 7 points and Braga have 3. And they just assume that that's a big enough gap. But, okay, how about this? We lose to Madrid and Braga wins against Union Berlin. It goes 7-6. And then people say, yeah, but we still have to play Braga. But yeah, I mean, it's at home. But at home, we've only won 2 of the last 7 games. We've only kept a clean sheet once in those 7. So you can't even say that, oh, we didn't win, but at least it was 0-0. That's not even what's happening. So we can't keep a clean sheet. We can barely win. And as you mentioned, in that period that we have to play Braga, we've got right before and after, we've got Atalanta, Inter, Juventus, all these teams. So Garcia is probably going to play the same kind of players. There might be a risk of injuries. Maybe he might need to focus a little bit more on the Serie A. So I'm really worried about that game against Braga. So I don't know what you think. Like what percentage chance would you give Napoli of passing the group right now?
Ooh, I'm gonna go maybe 60 to 70% chance. Anything could happen. Like you laid it out right there, right?
And I agree with you. And it's so frustrating because it could have been settled yesterday, right? We could have had a 95, 99% chance, and we just couldn't. And now we have to rely on this 60% chance. And like, you just never know, right? You never know, which is very, very annoying. I also want to, for people that are watching, I also want to remind you guys, yesterday we had 18 corners. We didn't score on any of them. Guess who did? Union Berlin did. Union Berlin scored from one of our corners. That kind of defending, I mean, you've seen the goal. That kind of defending, that's not Champions League level. Leaving only Lobotka behind when you were already winning a game.
Yeah. That was
unreal.
Terrible.
Unreal. I feel like there's a lot of fault also of the players, though. The players, to some extent, should realize they should be able to read the game as well. If you see that you've only got Lobotka behind you and you're a guy like, I don't know, Politano or Anguissa, who's maybe got a bit more speed, maybe you stay back a little bit in that corner just in case something happens. Maybe you don't commit fully, because the manager, look, he's got a lot of faults, but it's not like he can give minute instructions every single time. It's not like American football where the game stops, you huddle, you talk it out. Like, sometimes the players have to just kind of read the game and realize and take responsibility as well on their positioning. Another thing that I didn't like about the goal, Mario Rui, whilst he's tracking back, he basically leaves the guy who ends up scoring completely alone. He basically focuses on the guy who takes the first shot instead of sticking to his side of the field. So basically, when the rebound happened, that guy was completely unmarked. So little mistakes like that. Also, Kvara had a few chances to pass, to square the ball to his teammates, didn't do it. So there is some element to, like, some of the blame has to also fall on the players, because yes, Garcia is not putting them in the right conditions, but some of these players are making really strange decisions out there on the field. Like, do you get the same impression that I do?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. You can't put the blame on the manager. They're professionals. They're out there. They're the experts of the game. You got to make the right decisions, right? So I think they need to bear some of this on their shoulders and change the way they play and their attitude. Get out there and win. We know they can, right?
Yeah.
Think about last year.
Yeah.
Fantastic season.
So I'm going to ask you a very tough question, right? I'm saying our next 5 games: Empoli, Atalanta, Real Madrid, Napoli, and Juventus. How many of those do you think that we're going to win?
Wow, that is a tough question, Dom. 2 at most, and hopefully a couple ties in there, and a loss or so would be my gut instinct.
And which one would you absolutely not want to lose? And this is a bit of a trick question, because naturally, I think as fans, we would say, I don't want to lose against Juventus, right?
Yeah.
But I'm also looking at that Atalanta game, and I'm thinking maybe to myself, Juventus, they're probably going to be comfortably in the top 3, whereas maybe our main rival this year is Atalanta to keep that top 4. So if you really had to, I don't know, avoid losing a game, would you rather avoid losing to Atalanta or avoid losing to Juventus?
I would say Atalanta, just because we're neck and neck with them. So we need to get those extra 3 points on them. So that would be my pick.
Yeah, it's a 6-pointer, that game.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. It's obviously tough because I think winning against Juventus, it's special, and you never want to lose against Juventus. But if I have to think about the season as a whole, then I think the Atalanta game is absolutely massive. John, where do you think Napoli needs to improve? If they had to, let's say, go in the transfer market in December, and let's say you have 20, 30 million to spend, so you can buy one decent player, where do you think we need to look at? Is it the goalkeeper? Is it someone in defense, in midfield?
I would say on the back end, I would say either goalkeeper or defender. I really missed him. Like he was awesome. Netan's doing a great job. I mean, he's got a few games under his belt now, but Meret, so like last year he was great. The year before he made me nervous. I'm back to him making me feel nervous again. There's no confidence in our goalkeeper, which plays a mental thing on your top 10, right? When you can't really trust a goalie in the back, that plays on your mind. I think everybody's lost a bit of confidence. Like last year, you walk out with that swagger, right? We're top by 20 points, 16 points. I think they've lost that confidence and that swagger, and I think that's playing on their just affecting their game. That's my opinion. Get that swagger back and that confidence back, right? A big win against Inter, Juve, Atalanta. You really need that to get going again.
Do you think it's to what extent would you say, if you had to give percentages? I don't know why, but today I'm feeling the percentage game. But if you had to give percentages of blame to this Napoli start of the season, how much are you giving the coach? How much are you giving De Laurentiis? And how much are you giving the players?
Okay. So I'm going to say 40% players, 50% Garcia, and then 10% Ideo.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's why so low for Adiel? I'm curious.
I mean, he's done the right things. He's brought in proper replacements. Last year he did a good job bringing players in. I mean, this year the transfer market not the best, but I mean, I think he's got the right players in there. I mean, he did screw up with the coach, let's be honest, but I understand his rationale behind it, right? You got a guy who plays the 4-3-3. Let's bring him in, not shake things up too much. I think he was hoping for an easy transition. I find it hard to blame the person who's not on the field, right? And I get it. He's the manager. I get it. He's at the end of the day, he's making these decisions. But to me, it's more heavily on the people on the field, manager and the players.
Yeah, I would say that, for example, Kim, you said earlier you miss Kim, but actually
Yeah,
Nathan's been playing pretty well. So you could
yeah, for
say
sure.
he's pulled that rabbit out of the hat somehow.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Lozano, that we were criticizing so much last year, we got rid of him and we brought in a guy like Lindstrom. That on paper seems to be like a good call. We managed to keep our front players, Kvara, Osimhen, Simeone, Raspadori. We managed to keep Zielinski. Yeah, we could have maybe brought in someone else, but I mean, even Cahoust, he seems to be like a good player most of the time.
yeah.
So I agree. Like in terms of what we did this transfer market, things, yeah, we could have maybe done more, but it wasn't a disaster, right? This team
Mhm.
should be good enough to still be at a very high level, definitely higher than what we've seen. So then the fault has to be to the manager, to some extent to the players. So I think I'm more or less aligned with you. I would give it slightly more to Garcia than the players. I think the players, I mean, they're, for example, guys like Politano, like you can't really ask much more. Then there's other
Yeah.
guys that you can for sure ask more. I I look at actually some of the more experienced players like Rahmani, like Anguissa, and I just wonder what happened to them this year. Rahmani, for example, I'm really starting to dislike the guy this year, not because he's making that many defensive mistakes, but he's lacking in leadership. There was a moment in the 90th minute yesterday where he had the ball and all his teammates were like waving at him to pass it forward, and he chickened out, brings the ball back to Meret, and you see Nathan getting super upset with him, but just super upset. And this is a young guy getting upset
Mhm.
at his older teammate. Um, and yeah, Rahmani just crumbling under the pressure, not wanting to play the ball forward in case it's a bad pass or whatever. And it's just like we need these older guys to step it up. That pretty much concludes the overview of the situation. Is there anything else that you want to say? Anything that stood out to you in recent weeks, or anything you want to say
Uh,
about the
you know,
Napoli?
just Raspadori's play lately has been great. I
Mm.
would love somehow to get Osimhen and Raspadori both on the field at the same time, like two forwards.
I think that's something that actually Garcia is going to do. He seems to be absolutely in love with Raspadori and Politano in
Yeah,
particular. And so I think he's going to try that at some point to play both Raspadori and Osimhen together.
yeah.
Um, so that's going to be something interesting to see. Who knows?
Mhm.
Maybe that's going to change Napoli's fortunes. All right, I'm going to end it off with one final question. Where do you think Napoli is finishing at the end of the season?
That's a tough one. Top four for sure. Um, I'm gonna say third. I'm gonna say
Third.
Inter, Juve, and Napoli third. Yeah, I hate to say it, but that's what my gut's telling me.
Wow. Okay. Optimistic. Optimistic.
Always,
Nice.
Dom.
I
Always
like it.
optimistic.
I like it. You have to stay optimistic. I think this team is too good to finish outside the top four, honestly. But I think that game against Atalanta is going to be where we really know if
Yeah.
that top four is in danger or not. So I want to thank John not only for coming on today, but also for participating in the Napoli Talk Predictor game. Link is in the description. John, thank you, man. Thank you for coming on here. It's been
Thanks for
great
having me.
fun.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.